Hello, everyone. My name is Carlos Rodriguez. I am a brand new TRIA member. I've been a TRIA member for a little bit over a month now. Two main reasons why I joined TRIA are one, education, and two, building relationships. A little bit about myself. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois. I moved to the Raleigh area back in May of last year with my wife and now 2-year-old daughter. Um, when we first moved here, I was a stay-at-home dad, but I recently transitioned into working as a real estate agent, which I'm pretty excited for. I'm a pretty new investor, um, 0 properties, and I hope to get in the area of rental properties, specifically renting to medical students. Anyways, I hope to meet all of you soon. I will be on that Unbus tour this Saturday, so hopefully I meet some of you then. And if anyone would like to contact me for any reason at all, here's my contact info. And hope to meet all of you soon. Thank you. everyone. My name is Carlos Rodriguez. I am a brand new TRIA member. I've been a TRIA member for a little bit over a month now. Two main reasons why I joined TRIA are one, education, and two, building relationships. A little bit about myself. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois. I moved to the Raleigh area back in May of last year with my wife and now 2-year-old daughter. When we first moved here, I was a stay-at-home dad, but I recently transitioned into working as a real estate agent, which I'm pretty excited for. I'm a pretty new investor, 0 properties, and I hope to get in the area of rental properties, specifically renting to medical students. Anyways, I hope to meet all of you soon. I will be on that Unbus tour this Saturday, so hopefully I meet some of you then. And if anyone would like to contact me for any reason at all, here's my contact info. And hope to meet all of you soon. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here. Carlos, I know you're probably sick of seeing yourself, but March is almost over, baby, so we'll switch you out. Please turn on your cameras if you can. We like to see your smiling faces, and when we do go back live, it'll really help us get to know you. If you come to all these meetings and we never see you, it's hard for us to know who you are. So we'd love to see your faces if possible. Please do that. Speaking of going back live, we didn't, not enough people were ready in March, which is fine, we get it. But some of you were definitely ready. So what we've done is we are putting 2 of our subgroup meetings live in April, one of which is going to be this one. Yay! Leslie will give you more details about that, I think, in a minute. But until we get back live, how can you network? How can you get to know people in this weird, impersonal, little square picture format? Well, one thing, you can do a video and see yourself like Carlos there. You can join our monthly networking meetings, which is once a month. You can get on our Facebook page. We have 2. We have a Facebook page, which you can like and follow. And we have a Facebook networking group, Triangle Real Estate Investors Association networking group. That's the one you want to be in. Make sure you join that one. You can post things you have for sale or things you need. It's super active. People will answer you. And there's a lot going on there. So please take advantage of those ways of networking. And we do have more, small group things planned, but we do believe that the end is in sight and that, by summer, we think we'll be back live. So we are much looking forward to that. Other things, we have our new programs going, which is what we're able to do now with our new format, which we've worked very hard to get. And finally, we're seeing results. We had the first one actually last year was a prep rehab, where we had a class that actually bought a house, rehabbed it and sold it. And we're going to do another one of those. We have a interest list now. It's probably a couple months out, but if you have an interest, get on that list. That's prep in person. We have another prep in person class going right now, which is a prep wholesale. That class is, it's full. We've been meeting for 3 weeks now. And this week will be our 4th. And that class is going to get a property under contract and wholesale it. We are looking for more ideas for prep in person. We invite you, if you have an idea for a class, to let us know. We also invite you, if you're an experienced investor, please join the TRIA Brain Trust. That is another one of our new initiatives. One of our problems in the past was that experienced members, we didn't have a lot to offer and they would leave. So part of our new programming is an effort to build community, keep experienced investors, retain new investors, make ways where they can benefit each other. TRIA Brain Trust is an opportunity for you as an experienced investor to become a leader in TRIA, become known, put on programs, perhaps teach class and get paid for it. So by all means, if you have experience, apply to join the TRIA Brain Trust. And we are, it's new, so we realize it's a slow build, but once you've joined, there will be opportunities, and we will be encouraging you to help us with programming and to put on some programming. So hope to see you there if you are experienced. Then the other part of PREP, by the way, PREP stands for Practical Real Estate Projects. The other part of prep is prep virtual. And that is where we have once a month, and we take a topic and break it down for you step by step to where we do it with you and show you how to do it. So far, we've done two, how to fill out a purchase contract and how to find tax delinquent properties for free on county websites. I've just had a great suggestion today of someone who wants to teach one and to help people actually design like business cards and marketing and stuff like that. We do have a list of ideas, and we have received some great ideas from you all. Keep them coming, please. We have a new mentorship program, which Lionel Finley, yes, it is free to join the TRIA Brain Trust. Roxana is asking that question. Lionel Finley is heading up our mentor program. We also have a brand spanking new vendor program, which Karen Lewis is heading up. And we are asking you to suggest vendors. If you know of a vendor that you think would be a good fit, please send them our way, because not only can you get a commission for that, you also, it's all about building that community. You're making TRIA stronger, because when we're live, we try to keep our dues really low. Our dues do not cover the cost we pay for meeting rooms and food. So the way we do that is by our vendor program, and some once in a while a selling speaker. So if you help bring us vendors, then we get the vendors involved in the TRIA community. People will use their services and work with them and get to know them. That in turn makes the TRIA vendors invest more in TRIA. Again, just strengthening that community. Then they'll do more, and they'll sponsor things and become more involved. Then members will know them more and use them more. So it's a snowball effect. And the end result is that we are building a better and stronger community to benefit everyone. Okay, so that is pretty much the announcements that I have as far as I can remember. And I'm going to turn it over to, let me introduce the board members on your call tonight. Karen Lewis, as I mentioned, is heading up our vendor program. Leslie Ortiz is our vice president, and Jackie Richards is our communications director. She does all of our PR and publicity and all that stuff. And then Lionel Finley, as I mentioned, is heading up our mentorship program. Other board members who are not here are Sandy Spire or Spear. We haven't resolved yet, which is the correct pronunciation. Crystal Slater, and Crystal's the one who put on she's our special projects coordinator. She's responsible for the Unbus tour. And we have Chuck Jurgens, who is our president emeritus. I'm Kathy Russell. I am your president for this year. I am going to turn it over to Leslie now to tell you what's coming up, and then she will turn it over to Roxana. Maybe we haven't been able to establish contact with Roxana.
I'm right here.
Yay, she's back. Okay, so Leslie will take it, and then we'll turn it over to your subgroup leader, Roxana.
Okay, hey everybody, thanks for being here. Smiley faces and all. Finally getting some decent weather. So if anybody's got the houses going and you've been waiting to do outside work, you can get after it now. Anyway, we do have 3 meetings left in the month of March. This being one of them. And we've got an excellent speaker for you tonight with a very interesting subject. We've all conferred and have agreed that this is probably the first time we've ever had a speaker on this subject of accessory dwelling units. So pay close attention, take lots of notes, because this could be a really good income stream for you. And that's with Mr. Adam Stone tonight. And then tomorrow night, of course, we've got our REI Real Estate Investing 360, which was a kind of a weird meeting that we started trying to bring in new and exciting and different ways of investing that we normally wouldn't think of. We might be scaling back on this meeting now going into the new year, or like to maybe once a quarter, or we might just do it virtual, which might be a good way to do it. But tomorrow night we have got Tom and Cindy Dumar, and these folks have been, this couple have been in the investing game for a very, very long time, over 20 years. They're up in Pennsylvania, and they've got some really, really neat ideas how to scale your business, how to get started. They've just been doing it a long time, so hopefully you get some new nuggets from them tomorrow night. And then, of course, we have WIRE, Women in Real Estate, the second of our lunchtime meetings on Thursday at 12:30. Unfortunately, not at Prestonwood yet, but wait for it. And WIRE, Audrey, this month has got Cheryl is going to come on from, we're all going to have a speaker from Fayetteville, and Cheryl Gleason-Friel is going to come on and talk about rehabbing as a woman, because technically this is a woman's meeting. And when we're back in person, it is a woman's meeting. So we're going to start doing some typically women-oriented topics. So guys, if you're joining in, hey, it is what it is. And talking about scopes of work and how to manage subs and getting yourself set up for success on rehabs. So that'll be Thursday at lunchtime. And then going into April, as Kathy mentioned, we do have two in-person meetings. We're going to run with the subgroups rather than the main meeting, because we had quite a high bar to set there, because we had a minimum with the venue. So we're going to have the TRIA Experienced meeting in April is going to be live and in person at the Prestonwood Golf Club. And we are going to be limited to 25 attendees in the room. That's all the COVID restrictions will allow them to have. So that's going to be that. I'm going to get those meeting up on the calendar soon. So keep an eye out. And then Roxana is going to have next month's meeting in person for TRIA West. And that's at Mez Mexican restaurant off of Page Road in Durham. They got really good food. It's a nice room, and we're going to be, I believe we're going to be allowed to have, because of the size of the room, we'll be allowed to have 40 people at that meeting. So I don't have information on topic speakers yet, but that'll be coming, and I'll get those posted up. So just keep an eye on the calendar. And then the rest of April, chances are real good, unless a miracle happens, we're still going to be Zooming. So it is what it is until everybody feels safe enough to just get back to being in person. So anyway, that's all I have for meeting news right now. So I'm going to turn it over to Roxana, and she can get it rolling. Roxana.
Hey, happy Monday, you guys. I hope you are off to a great start. And we are going to be talking about more real estate on tonight. If you haven't already, make sure you go ahead, head on over to the Facebook group. Make sure you do not forget, that's where we do a lot of communication and also networking via Facebook inside of the TRIA group. So don't be afraid to say hello so we can get a chance to actually meet you. And just like she said, next month, we're going to be hosting our first in-person meeting since the lockdown. So I hope you guys are excited about actually having some real interaction. But in the meantime, let's still make this online thing work. So we're going to continue on bringing you guys a lot of creative ways, because I know some of you may be new, some of you may be old. So one thing for sure, there's not going to be any more land that's going to fall out of God's green earth. So what we got to do is get creative with the land itself. So on tonight, Adam Stones is here, and he is going to bring us the heat and give us some creative ways and introduce us to something that it may be new for some, and some you may heard of it, and some of you guys may have did it, but without further ado, he will actually come on in and tell us everything that we need to know and how creative we can get, especially being flexible. Here in North Carolina, there's a lot of land, so we should be able to definitely utilize this as a resource. Thank you, Adam, so much for clearing your schedule for us today to make this happen. And I know you're going to kill it. And definitely you're welcome to come back again, because I know you are a host of a lot of knowledge. You guys, he also is an attorney. He do a lot of assets protection type things as well. But yes, he's definitely dope and definitely enjoy real estate. So we are excited to have you here today, Adam. Let's go.
Thanks, Roxanne. I really appreciate the invite. Well, we connected a couple months ago on Clubhouse, one of those Clubhouse connections if anybody hasn't been on there yet. So, I definitely appreciate the opportunity to speak. And before I get too far, I can't go without acknowledging my mom, who's actually a member of TRIA, Dr. Glenda Stone. So, hey, Mom, good to see you. But my name is Adam Stone. I'm a real estate and business attorney, licensed real estate broker, and also a real estate investor based in San Diego, the background, sunny San Diego. And I'm really excited to talk to you today because what I'm talking to you about is a way, like Roxana said, a creative opportunity to continue to maximize and raise the profit potential for the residential properties and the projects that you're working on. So accessory dwelling units are what we're talking about, and I'm focused on accessory dwelling units from the investment perspective, but there are a lot of personal benefits as well. So what are accessory dwelling units? They started in California, but they're not brand new. We've seen them as granny flats, casitas. People talk about Happy Days with the Fonz. That's a sort of ADU now, the upstairs garage apartment, but they're basically supplemental living units that are in addition to the existing principal, whether they're detached or attached. They're designated by having a separate outdoor entrance, a living space, a kitchen, a bathroom, and a sleeping area. Now, there are multiple different types of ADUs, but they typically come down to three types. The attached version, and in California, those are known as junior ADUs. That's basically when you have a room attached to a portion of your house that has its own outdoor entrance. You can convert that into its own separate living space, a studio or something like that. And that's what they consider an attached ADU. Now, there are two types of detached ADUs. Conversions of existing structures, garages are the most common for that. And then new builds. New builds can be either a stick build or prefab modular homes. And for our investments in San Diego, we use accessory dwelling units and we focus on storage containers for the new build side of our model. So that's just the three different areas: attached, detached as existing conversion, and detached as a new build structure. Now, in terms of ownership rights, this doesn't create a new legal parcel. This is all on the same existing parcel. That means it's the same ownership. They don't allow you to sell off part. You can't sell the ADU separate from the main house. That all has to stay together. And in Raleigh right now, or I looked at Raleigh just to get a sense of what your laws allow, but there's only one allowed per lot at a time at this time. So who knows, down the line that may change. For example, in California, there was initially a one ADU rule, but that's expanded. And now there's ability for multiple ADUs depending on how you structure it and how you designate them on your property. So what is the value add for accessory dwelling units? I phase it in a few different ways. You have the value add at acquisition and going into the deal, the value add in the short term, the value add in the long term, and then a resale. So at the early stage, ADUs, when you know what you're looking for, they allow you to know there's more profit potential, more value possible in your residential projects. If you see that there's a house with a detached garage that's, good shape, not a tear down or falling over anyway, then you can use that as a sense of what the extra potential could be. Somebody might look at that property and see a rehab available for the main house and nothing for the garage. But if you look at it from the sense of, okay, we can rehab the main house, but then also convert the garage into its own ADU structure and bring in a separate income stream, that adds an extra level of your ability to raise your offer price because there's more profit potential there. So you have the ability to win more deals that way when there's more equity and more value add potential than other investors might. Now, after you get the ADU completed, there is the short-term game of having either another income stream from a renter. People who use them for personal reasons, they have it as a generational wealth builder, a generational wealth consolidation tool, because now they can have a parent live on the property with them and help pay the mortgage. They can live in the main house, split it up that way. Everybody still has their own separate space, but allows for mortgage relief among family members. And then in the long term, you're looking at instant appreciation once you're completed with the ADU. In California, typically you're seeing, even for smaller ADUs, they range from about 100,000 to 150,000 in extra value added to the property. And North Carolina is different from California because at this time, ADUs are limited only to the size of the existing structure. California, there are more laws in place that restrict the size and keep the size smaller. Typically, you'll see sizes ranging at 1,200 square feet max down to as small as 120 square feet in what's called a micro unit. Micro units are being used more and more throughout California and other markets as affordable housing options for low income families or low income individuals, and allows them to again have a place to live as opposed to being homeless and on the street. So there are a lot of different ranges you can go with it, but at the max, you're typically seeing a 2-bedroom, 1-bath type unit that's about 1,200 square feet. And then in terms of that resale value, now we're still working through it in California, and in North Carolina, I would anticipate this in your deals. There are going to be issues finding comparables early on because ADUs aren't going to be very prevalent in the early stages. As they start to get built, there'll be more comps. Appraisals are going to be a little bit more consistent. And then from there, you'll be able to get more consistent valuations. But even in the early stages in California, you could use the rental income to determine the NOI and then use that as a cap rate to determine what the purchase price could be or what the value of the property could be. And again, as more time has gone by, the appraisers have shown more of a tendency to treat them as duplexes more than a house with an extra unit. And when you get that duplex valuation, obviously that's going to boost the overall value of property as opposed to a single family residence. Moving on just to permit tips and things to think about when building your own ADU. I think the one thing to focus on very early on, especially if you're new to ADUs completely, get an architect that's familiar with them. An architect is going to be crucial to help you figure out, what exactly you're able to do, first of all, because, you need to stay within your setbacks, your gross floor area, which is the percentage of the property that can be covered by structures, and then your height limits. And from there, you're still looking at utility hookups, foundation issues. Potentially you have to navigate with garage conversions or putting in a new build in your backyard. And then the last piece is reconfiguring the floor plan of your existing structure or, whatever your small space is going to be to make sure that you're meeting the needs for the living space, the kitchen, the bathroom, and sleeping area. So, while it's always important to have a great contractor, the ADU architect, engineer that you're working with is going to be very pivotal to make sure you're going through the permitting process without too many hiccups, too many delays, or pursuing a project they may not even be able to be, an ADU, depending on, where it's located and how it's situated. In terms of the timeline to build in San Diego, we've seen some slowdowns in our planning department. So, we're looking at a 6 to 9 month build out process. And that's even after having the city put in regulations and other things to help expedite the process. I haven't seen all the jurisdiction regulations out in North Carolina, obviously, but in terms of what typically you're looking for, there's either going to be an area where you can go along their path, their own, pre-approved plans, pre-approved models, pre-approved floor plans. That's something that has been pretty popular in some jurisdictions in California. Or you're going to have to work with your architect to develop your own site plan and get that permitted as a whole new structure every time. So I would just take a closer look at your own individual jurisdiction and see exactly what their process is. But if they do allow for approvals through pre-approved site plans, I advise that if you can put that into your model, because it does move things along, I should say, because the slowdowns come in when you have your own custom design, and that can hit hurdles on its own, as opposed to pre-approved plans. They allow you to just move on, expedite your process, and usually it also allows you to lessen your fees. So it's just more cost effective and time effective to use something that the county or the city has already signed off on. And then last piece, you're going to see changes in ADU laws as time progresses. Right now, it's very early on. Like I said earlier, there's only one allowed per lot right now. But as time progresses, as the cities and the other jurisdictions get more comfortable with ADUs, you can expect some flexibility, some changes along the path. And in terms of what we've seen in California, like I said, they have allowed more ADUs down the line. They've allowed ADUs to be geared in different ways. So in addition to allowing for the attached ADUs, now they're allowing people to get ADUs in subdivisions and subdivisions that have HOAs in place. And initially those weren't allowed. So having that extra layer of awareness in terms of what areas could be next for ADU laws is also an important step to have. But I would say, with such a new market in the Raleigh area, you could really focus on finding properties that have detached garages, large lots, with space that you don't have to worry about the setbacks as much. But, the garage conversions are typically the low hanging fruit in terms of ADUs and adding that income stream. Any questions at this point?
Nope, no questions.
No, but I have one. There aren't any in the chat box. But Adam, when you're putting in an ADU, and when you're developing one, so if you're rehabbing and you're intentionally adding, do you typically separate out the electric and the utilities? Are you looking at it as two separate rental agreements, or does it really just depend on what the easiest? I'm trying to think of whether or not this would make the most sense for short-term rentals, or, you mentioned duplexes.
No, good question. So in terms of, the management and the operation side, it allows for you to have the ability to set up your own rental system on your property that doesn't affect your main house. So for example, we have an ADU on our property. It's our garage was converted into a studio. So we have a separate lease set up for the studio, and we use travel nurses of a company called Furnish Finder. And Furnish Finder is, we think it's great. It, allows for people to come in and they still are coming in at market rates, and you're able to have them in a contract for usually 1 to 6 months, depending on how long they're on their contract with the medical facility that they're at. But that's also been a good one. One thing to watch out for, San Diego and other jurisdictions in California, and they're not just in California, ADUs are in Oregon, they're getting instituted in Chicago, they're coming into play in Nevada. Las Vegas is big on ADUs now. Florida's starting to put them into regulation. So they are growing in other jurisdictions and states. But when you're talking about short-term vacation rentals, that has been one of the hot points for ADUs and one of the areas that have gotten the most scrutiny. They're designed and they're geared to add in housing, and that's the legislative intent. So in some cities, they either restrict the use of ADUs for short-term rentals, or they require them to be licensed and registered with the jurisdiction. But that's something just to watch out for and look into yourself. And on the side of, the construction with the utilities, that depends on what the situation is. If it's a new build, you might, and I'm not a construction expert, you might get separate meters put in, with the new build, as opposed to a garage conversion where you have existing meters already. If there's enough power going to the garage, maybe you don't tie in a new meter, but now you have shared utilities between the two separate units. So, that's just something to monitor, but it wouldn't be any different than, if you had a duplex on your own and they had shared utilities. You just have to work out a way to split that in your lease.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then how would you handle, you had mentioned, I think on your personal home that you converted your garage. From an insurance perspective, if it's your personal property, then you've got your traditional homeowner's insurance. But if you are creating a scenario where a portion is being rented out, is it a split policy? Do you get a landlord's policy for that aspect as well? I guess what are the ramifications from an insurance perspective?
I mean, it is typical to, again, if you had a duplex or something along those lines, and you were renting out, living on one side and renting out the other, you do want to have insurance in play, and, you do want to have your homeowner's insurance just for your own side benefit too. But if you're doing something that's more regular in terms of, whether it's a travel nurse, vacation rental, something along those lines, you could look at getting a commercial general liability policy. Just making sure that your renters are, making sure their stuff is insured too through renters insurance. But CGL could work, and use of LLCs and other things as well to help structure the property ownership. So in terms of just examples, and I did want to share one example this is actually from your city's regulations. One second here. So this is a page out of the ordinance for Raleigh, and this is what instituted the ADU laws. And I wanted to bring this up just to kind of give you a visual for what they're looking at and what we're talking about for adding in ADU units. As you can see here, there are, the main houses, and then in the back, you're looking at alleyways with access then determined for the ADU unit that's back here. This looks like a new build, as opposed to if you had something already, this is an existing structure. You could, again, convert that and just make sure the setbacks are in line with what the law allows. Just in terms of the setbacks, you see here 15 feet from front side, 10 feet from the rear, 25-foot overhaul height limit, and then the dwelling unit maximums and living area maximums. So there are some maxes in terms of the regulations that put some limits in terms of what you are able to do. So that's, again, where the architect becomes very important, or whoever you're working with, ADU consultant, or, if you have an understanding for yourself, just to make sure you are clear that whatever you're designing, even if you have a large lot, you're not doing something that is immediately going to have, the planning department sending it back for revisions. And just to wrap and get into more questions, the management aspect, we kind of got into some of the aspects of management, but typically you are treating this as another multifamily house and a multifamily property, and that does allow for you to own a property with an ADU and rent to separate owners. Just because it can't be sold separately, it can be rented separately. So people do rent the main house and then maybe rent the ADU to a smaller couple or individual. And again, you would have commercial general liability insurance and things like that to cover the property. You could also look at doing things with other LLCs, or having the ADUs rented out by LLCs. And again, check with your local attorneys. But in terms of structuring the properties itself, there aren't any restrictions about the ownership of the property through ADUs, except for the fact that it can't be split ownership. So, a lot of the things that the investors in this group are using to protect themselves and to protect their assets and liabilities with the ownership of the property, you could do the same thing here. It's just a matter of you have another income stream on the property now. There's no questions. I can get into one example from an investment that we're working on out here in California, but I do want to take more questions if anybody has any.
Nothing in the chat yet.
Okay. Okay, so when we talked earlier about the types of ADUs possible, one aspect that I mentioned was the use of prefab modular homes. Now, the Raleigh's ordinance does allow for them, and it's not uncommon for the state to slowly allow for more and more uses. Right now in North Carolina, tiny homes on wheels aren't allowed. And in California, San Diego specifically, San Diego started to allow them over the last few months. So that's, again, part of that progression that you'll see as the jurisdiction gets more comfortable with having ADUs in play. Another aspect to think about is parking. Now, with having a garage conversion, taking up, a 2-car garage, 3-car garage, you will have to consider what are the other aspects to parking. Street parking is big here. People use driveway parking, but overall, the jurisdictions vary in terms of the regulations, whether they require parking or if they give a waiver for parking, depending on the ADU size or the ADU location. For example, in San Diego, if an ADU, city of San Diego, if an ADU is located within a half mile of major bus station, trolley station, major streets, then it's located in what's called a transit priority area. And then that allows for the ADU parking requirements to be waived because it's in a high traffic zone. Okay. So in terms of larger size projects, with the ADUs that typically people are using for the BRRRR strategy, the fix and flip, adding in the garage conversion as part of that strategy, that's what we see as the most common investment model for ADUs. But on the other side, ADUs can be used, depending on what the regulations allow, for more upside. For example, what we're doing in San Diego is trying to focus on ADUs as it relates to affordable housing. And as a lot of you know, affordable housing does carry with it density bonuses and other things like that to allow you to add more units if you designate them under affordable housing rent rates. So for our projects, again, we're tying in the ability to do multiple ADUs, but in that scenario, we're still looking at rehabbing the existing house and then converting whatever existing structures are there into ADUs. And then from that point, adding on ADUs as the density bonuses allow to be geared towards affordable housing. So, as the ADU laws open up in North Carolina, I think those are going to be some of those next level plays that the investors who have some experience with ADU, some comfort and familiarity with it, will be more likely to get into and build up their projects using that route. Okay, some questions, all right. In terms of
explaining everything really, really well, Adam. So I think they're just sitting there absorbing.
no problem.
Sign of a good speaker.
In terms of the cost to build out, that really varies, because if you're talking about taking an attached part of an existing home and converting that into a studio, that's going to be a lot less expensive than converting an existing garage, which is going to be less expensive than building a new unit in the backyard from scratch and putting in a whole new foundation. So, again, depending on what your budget is, with this market being so new with ADUs, you have the ability to kind of pick what best fits your budget and what best fits your investment strategy. Usually the garage conversions and the internal attached ADUs work a little faster permitting wise, but that's, again, if you have all of your ducks in a row and you're making sure that the application is solid going in with the site plan and everything. So in terms of initial options and things like that, what we've been seeing and what we advise, like when I talk to people who are looking to buy their own primary residence, I immediately have them look at the property from what is existing there, what things are potentially convertible, what area, if there's another side entrance or separate entrance, does that potentially turn into a space that could be a studio or a larger unit? That is what you can start looking for right away to figure out what type of potential might be there.
Adam, is an ADU typically, it's a long-term thing? It's not typically considered the same as an Airbnb or something like that?
Well, so
Would it be
the
subject to the same qualifications?
So the accessory dwelling unit, it's a permanent structure. It's you know, whether it's a garage or brand new build, it's there. It's supposed to be there long term and have a permanent status on the property. Now, in terms of the use, you know, the use can be depending on what your regulations allow. Anything as short as a vacation rental, you know, getting it set up on that, or you know, long term for annual lease or you know, multi-year lease, depending on who you want to live there. You have that type of flexibility with it.
Okay.
It's just a matter of resale. You can't sell it off separately or do something like that.
We do have a couple questions for you in the chat now. First, from your mom, does the addition of an ADU impact the zoning of the property? And then she says, probably not if you're limited to one, but what about maybe other places with there's a possible addition of more, maybe other places that don't have a limit as to one?
Well, typically, no, it doesn't impact the zoning. The zoning allows for the ADU. So the zoning, and even for Raleigh, for example, it lays out sections of the zoning code and sections of the zoning ordinance that are geared towards the ADU. I think R1, R2, R4, and then a multiple other designations. But those are the areas where they want you to put the ADUs, and then once they're there, it doesn't change it or change the classification to commercial or anything like
Just
that.
Works within it.
Correct.
And Bianca Bazil is asking, do you know if municipalities consider grandfathering in existing structures that don't meet the setback requirements?
So that is something that it came along the way in California. And I do expect other states to be faster about that and see how, you know, the states that instituted their ADU laws sooner, see how they worked through that progress and got up to the point where now, you know, for example, in San Diego, if there's a garage that is within the setbacks, but it's been there for 50 years, you don't have to tear it down and rebuild it. If it's able to be converted, then you can convert it as is and where it's located. Initially, there were areas where that was an issue and there were, you know, code violations and things like that people had to work around. But it's now to the point where you can get structures grandfathered in. And, you know, that's, again, something that you might want to check on and look into. But, you know, the biggest thing is from the permitting department's perspective, it does help them because if they've had problems with properties that were unpermitted or just weren't done correctly, but now they have an ability for somebody to come in, put the money into it to get it up to code and really rehab it and have it built the right way, then there is some incentive there. But if you have a property that has something existing on it, then, you know, I would look into that first before focusing on trying to build a whole new structure.
That's all for now.
Okay. So again, when you're talking about the resale aspect, it does have an immediate new level to it. And now, you know, you're seeing people even advertising properties with ADU potential. And that typically just means it has a garage or a larger lot or something like that. You know, there's a lot of properties that have ADU potential. And I'm sure even with having some of the residential designations in Raleigh, you know, not allowing ADUs between R1, R2, R4, you know, that'll give you plenty of options early on to find properties with garages and properties with, you know, back units or things like that that can be converted into their own ADU. And then more about the cost to build out. Again, depending on what your contractor and how you work with your contractor, if you're doing the work yourself or finding somebody that's going to be a main factor in, you know, what your costs are. And, you know, unfortunately, the financing options have not really come along yet. There's very few loan programs that I'm aware of, at least, that really work to tie ADUs into their into a budget there are some out there, some purchase loans. I think FHA 203K allows for ADUs now. If you have a contractor that can put it in with a bid that lays out all the work, and then, they go on a draw system from there. But I do believe they are starting to allow that for their 203K loans, to look at it for that way. But that's still going to be more of a primary residence use. So there are other companies that are getting more popular with their ADUs. And, I think soon down the line, they're going to start using that as a way to start self-financing their deals. But I would say that's one of the biggest problems right now is finding the financing for it, because after you get it built, the project, the property pays for itself. Even if you're paying 120,000 for a new ADU unit, if you're renting it out for $1,000 a month or something along those lines, you're able to pay it off relatively quickly. And in San Diego and California, with the way that housing prices are and rent rates are, obviously they're different price points between the two markets, but there still is the ability to add in additional lines, additional streams of income and additional rental streams on your projects. And, that obviously can boost the equity regardless of your original price point. Okay. All right. Some final tips in terms of, what to look for in terms of your initial process. Again, when you're just driving for dollars or on Zillow or on the MLS looking for options, find those easy properties that even if you find a property that's a rehabbed home, you can still, people are still buying rehabbed homes that have, unconverted garages, converting the garages and finding deals that way. So there's just a lot of different avenues for you to look at these projects. And more importantly, on the resale side, the value add to a family, when we're talking about, again, being able to consolidate wealth, build generational wealth, add, the ability to bring people into the property and have separate living, it does have a huge market for more interest. So they're here to stay. I think they're a great housing option, especially when you're talking about the affordable housing crisis. And I love the fact that other states are adopting it too. So I'm excited to see how North Carolina continues to roll out the regulations and see how many ADUs get built over the next few years.
Thank you so much. I know that you have another meeting to run to, and we do not want to keep you, but that was fantastic. Roxana, do you want to
Wind us up.
wind us up?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Adam, for hosting this awesome meeting with us today. And thank you for your knowledge and your flexibility. And I look forward with having you back again. And hello to your mom. Thank you.
Yeah, that was kind of unexpected and cool.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool, right? Yes.
Yeah, small world.
Yeah.
we love the
Thanks so much
moms.
for joining us, and especially when I know you have another meeting, we sincerely appreciate it, and we definitely would love to have you back again.
Oh, you're welcome. And Roxana has my information, and my mom does too, obviously. So you can reach out to them and get it from me if anybody has any questions going forward. But yeah, good luck, and I hope you guys start incorporating them in your investments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Adam. That was great. Before everybody
Thank you.
drops off, I just want to add that I was remiss in my listing off the upcoming events in person because, and this is something we all have to get used to, is that we are adding a new subgroup in Wilmington.
Oh yeah, we all have to get used to it.
Wilmington subgroup, whoop, whoop, raise the roof. And Karen Lewis is going to be leading that one. And that is going to be having their inaugural meeting on the 14th of April, of course, in Wilmington. But if anybody wants to road trip, I'm up for it.
Yeah, road trip, y'all.
And yeah, so that's going to be getting together on April 14th in person. So it's going to be, I think I already have put it up on the calendar. If anybody feels like heading down to Wilmington for a meeting.
We just keep forgetting to talk about it.
I know, and that's my bad. My bad. It's new and it's going to be fabulous. And we're going to get a whole bunch of new stuff going from down on the coast. It's like, yeah, beaching.
Then we can go more often.
Exactly. So I just want to make sure everybody checks the calendar for the future April meetings. Get signed up early and everything else that's going on, man, we got a lot of good stuff coming. A lot of good stuff. Anyway, if everybody's cool, thank you very much it's still light out. What? It never used to be light out when we were done with this, so go get some fresh air. It's not too terribly warm out, but step outside and have a breath. Anyway, everybody, thanks for coming. Take
Bye,
care. Be
everyone.
careful out there.
Thank you, Roxana, for a great meeting.
Thanks, Roxanne.
Thank you.